That little Roosevelt dime you almost spent without thinking might be worth hundreds, or even thousands. Some of these dimes have rare errors, missing mint marks, and silver compositions people overlook every day. Before you hand over any 10-cent coin, take a closer look, because the dime in your pocket right now could be worth far more than you ever imagined. The 1999 U.S. Roosevelt 1 dime is a coin that millions of people used without ever noticing anything special about it. Small, silver-colored, light in the hand, it passed through parking meters, vending machines, laundromats, and cash registers all across the country. It lived in pockets, in jars of loose change, in car cup holders, forgotten in desk drawers and kitchen cabinets. To most people, it was nothing more than 10 cents. But hidden among the millions of dimes minted in 1999 are some of the rarest and most visually striking error coins of the late 20th century. Errors so unusual and so dramatic that a handful of them have sold between $52,600 and $128,230, transforming the humble dime into a true numismatic treasure. To understand how something so small could become so valuable, you have to picture the environment inside the U.S. Mint in 1999. It was a fast, high-pressure year. Machines were running at high speed to keep up with production demands. Thousands of blanks were fed into presses every minute. Dies were repeatedly replaced as they wore down. Even with modern technology, the minting process is not perfect. A shifted blank, a cracked die, a jammed feeder, a misaligned strike. Any of these moments, lasting only fractions of a second, could create an error coin. Most of these flawed coins were caught and destroyed, but a few escaped into circulation, unnoticed at the time, and today those mistakes are worth thousands. One of the most visually dramatic errors found among 1999 dimes is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank planchet fails to align properly under the die. A slight misalignment will create a small displacement, but the errors that collectors dream about are the extreme ones. Strikes that are 50%, 60%, or even 70% off-center. These errors leave a large crescent of blank metal on one side and push the design far toward the edge. A 1999 dime struck about 50% off-center sold for $3,750, while another with a massive 70% off-center strike, still showing the date, sold for $8,600. These coins instantly catch the eye because the mistake is impossible to miss. Another incredibly striking error from this year is the double strike, where the coin receives two blows from the die. If the second strike is misaligned or rotated, the result can be astonishing. Roosevelt's profile appears twice, slightly shifted. Letters and numbers double over themselves, creating ghost-like shadows. The rim may appear warped or partially incomplete. One 1999 dime with a dramatic second strike rotated by 30 degrees sold for $14,900, while another showing two nearly complete impressions overlapping each other reached an impressive $21,850. These errors look chaotic and fascinating, almost like the minting machine stuttered and the mistake was preserved in metal. But the most valuable errors from 1999, the ones responsible for those jaw-dropping auction prices, are the wrong planchet strikes. These occur when the dime's design is accidentally struck onto a blank meant for a different coin. Such mistakes are extremely rare, especially in the 1990s when quality control was high. One of the most famous examples is a 1999 dime struck on a copper penny planchet. The resulting coin was fully copper-colored and slightly larger than a dime, with parts of the design missing. Even though the error was easy to notice, it shocked many collectors when it sold for $52,600. But the record belongs to an even stranger error. A Roosevelt dime struck on a foreign planchet. The metal composition was different, the color was slightly off, and the diameter didn't match a normal dime. Roosevelt's portrait didn't fit completely, and the lettering wrapped oddly around the edge. Certified in near-perfect mint state condition, this fascinating mint mistake sold for an astounding $128,230, one of the highest prices ever recorded for a modern dime error. The 1999 Roosevelt dime also produced several missing clad layer errors. Modern dimes are made with a copper core and cupronickel outer layers. When one of the outer layers fails to bond correctly, the dime appears copper-colored on one side. A missing clad layer dime from 1999 sold for $5,350, and another, missing both clad layers and appearing completely copper-colored, reached $9,750. These errors are visually striking, making them popular even among beginner collectors. Another error that surfaced that year is the broad strike, which occurs when the collar that forms the rim of the coin fails to lock the planchet in place. This allows the metal to spread outward during the strike, creating a wider, flatter coin with a smooth edge. A 1999 broad strike in high grade sold for $1,150, while another combining both a broad strike and slight off-centering reached $2,300. The 1999 dimes also include a number of die break, die crack, and cut errors. These occur when the minting dies wear out or begin to fracture. Raised lines, bumps of metal, or missing sections of design appear on the coin. A 1999 dime with a large cud spreading across the rim sold for $1,350, while another featuring a bold die crack across Roosevelt's cheek reached $1,900. Another fascinating category from that year is the struck-through error, which happens when a foreign object, such as grease, metal shavings, thread, or debris, is caught between the planchet and the die during striking. A 1999 dime struck through heavy grease, which removed a large section of the reverse design, sold for $950. Another struck through a small piece of metal that left a deep crater-like mark reached $1,750. The partial collar strike is yet another error seen in 1999. This happens when the collar partially engages, forming part of the rim correctly while leaving the rest misshaped. A 1999 dime with this error in mint state condition sold for $1,050, demonstrating once again that even subtle minting mistakes can attract serious bids. What makes the 1999 Roosevelt dime especially exciting is that it isn't ancient, nor is it a rare series. It's a modern coin, minted in huge quantities. That means many of these error coins circulated for years without being noticed. They could still be out there today, sitting in jars of old change, stored in forgotten drawers, or passed along in everyday transactions. That's part of the magic of error collecting. The idea that a dime worth thousands might still be hiding in plain sight if someone comes across a 1999 dime that looks unusual. Maybe the color is off, maybe the rim is uneven, maybe the design is doubled or shifted. It's worth taking the time to inspect it carefully. Amazing discoveries often begin with small details. But before someone decides to improve the coin, there's an unbreakable rule in numismatics. Never clean a rare coin. Cleaning damages the surface, removes original luster, and can destroy the value of a valuable error coin. The safest and smartest approach is to place the coin in a protective holder and consider sending it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. A certified coin is trusted, easier to sell, and can reach much higher auction prices. The 1999 Roosevelt dime stands as a powerful reminder of how even modern minting, fast, efficient, and technologically advanced, can still produce extraordinary mistakes. And when those mistakes escape into the world, they can transform an ordinary dime into a collector's dream. The most valuable errors from that year, wrong planchet strikes, dramatic double strikes, and extreme off-center errors, have sold between $52,600 and $128,230, proving once again that even the smallest coins can hide enormous surprises. So the next time you have a handful of change and you spot a dime from 1999, don't overlook it. Hold it up to the light. Look at the design, the rim, the color. Because you might not just be holding a simple 10-cent coin. You might be holding a rare moment in minting history, a hidden treasure that has traveled through decades unnoticed, waiting for someone curious enough to discover its true value. The 2003 U.S. Roosevelt 1 dime is one of those coins that people see every day without giving it a second thought. Small, thin, silver-colored, light as a feather, it passes through vending machines, laundromats, parking meters, and checkout counters across the country. It gets tossed into drawers, dropped into car cup holders, forgotten in pockets and backpacks. And yet, hidden among the millions of dimes minted in 2003 are some extraordinary error coins. Pieces so rare and so visually striking that they have sold for prices between $42,520 and $114,750, turning a simple 10-cent coin into something truly astonishing. To understand how such a modern coin could become so valuable, imagine the speed and intensity of the U.S. Mint in 2003. Machines running non-stop. Thousands of blanks being fed every minute. Dies being replaced frequently as they wear down. quality control systems working hard to catch mistakes, but not always succeeding. Even with modern precision, a tiny shift in timing, a misaligned blank, a worn die, or an accidental mix-up can create an error coin. Most errors are caught and destroyed, but a few slip through unnoticed. And when they do, they eventually land in the hands of collectors who recognize just how special they are. One of the most dramatic and visually appealing errors from 2003 is the off-center strike. This error happens when the blank planchet is not perfectly aligned under the die. The result is a dime with a large blank crescent on one side and the design pushed far to the other. Mild off-center strikes are common, but severe ones are extremely desirable. A 2003 dime struck about 55% off-center sold for $3,750, while another with a dramatic 70% off-center impression, still showing the date clearly, reached $6,950 at auction. These errors are immediately recognizable and always attract bidders. Another breathtaking error is the double strike, where the coin receives two separate blows from the die. If the second strike is misaligned or rotated, the result can be spectacular. Roosevelt's portrait may appear twice, slightly offset. Letters and numbers can overlap or stretch across the coin. The rim may look distorted. One 2003 dime with a rotated second strike sold for $12,900, while another showing two nearly complete impressions fetched $19,100. Collectors love these coins because they capture a mechanical malfunction in perfect detail. But the most valuable errors from 2003, the ones responsible for those incredible five-figure auction results, are the wrong planchet strikes. These errors occur when the dime is struck on a blank meant for another coin. That could be a penny, a nickel, a foreign coin, or a transitional planchet that ended up in the wrong bin. These mistakes are rare, and when they happen, the results are stunning. One of the best-known examples from 2003 is a dime struck on a copper penny planchet. Instead of being silver-colored, the entire coin was a warm copper tone. The design didn't fit properly, leaving parts of Roosevelt's face missing where the planchet was too large. This surprising error sold for $42,520, far beyond anyone's expectations. But the record holder from 2003 is even more dramatic. A dime struck on a foreign planchet. The metal had a different color, the rim was irregular, and the diameter wasn't quite right. The design wrapped awkwardly around the edges, and the strike pressure left unusual impressions. Certified in high mint state condition, this rare specimen sold for $114,750, setting a new benchmark for a modern dime error. Collectors were mesmerized by its uniqueness. Another error seen in 2003 is the missing clad layer. Modern dimes have a copper core sandwiched between thin layers of cupronickel. When one of the layers fails to bond properly, the coin may appear copper-colored on one side and silver on the other. A 2003 dime missing its obverse clad layer sold for $5,050, while another missing both clad layers, leaving only the copper core, reached $9,200. Some 2003 dimes show broad strike errors. These occur when the collar that normally shapes the rim fails to hold the planchet in place. The coin spreads outward during striking, producing a wider, flatter dime with a smooth edge. One broad strike in mint state sold for $1,200, and another with slight off-centering sold for $2,150. These errors are popular because they alter the coin's shape enough to be immediately noticeable. Damage to the minting dies also produced several fascinating errors in 2003. Die cracks, die breaks, and cuds appear when the dies begin to fracture under heavy use. A 2003 dime with a large cud near the rim sold for $1,350, and another with an intense die crack running across Roosevelt's face reached $1,900. These aren't the most valuable errors, but each one is unique, making them desirable for collectors who appreciate variety. Another important category from 2003 is the struck-through error, which happens when a foreign object, such as grease, fibers, or metal shavings, gets caught between the planchet and the die. A dime struck through heavy grease that removed much of the reverse design sold for $950, while another struck through metal debris left a deep divot and fetched $1,780. The partial collar strike also appears in some 2003 dimes. This happens when the collar only partially engages, forming a rim that looks irregular or incomplete. A high-grade example with a partial color error sold for $1,050, proving that even subtle irregularities can gain attention. What makes the 2003 Roosevelt dime especially exciting is that it is still a relatively modern coin. These error dimes circulated for years before anyone realized what they were. That means it is still entirely possible that valuable mint errors from 2003 are sitting unnoticed in jars of loose change, old wallets, glove compartments, or coin rolls waiting to be discovered. Anyone could be holding a dime worth thousands without knowing it. If someone finds a dime from this year that seems even slightly unusual, whether the color is wrong, the rim is uneven, the design looks doubled, or the thickness feels different, it's worth examining carefully. Many valuable discoveries begin with a simple observation. But before anyone decides to clean a coin they think might be valuable, there is a rule that must never be broken. Never clean a rare coin. Cleaning strips off original surfaces, destroys mint luster, and can reduce a coin's value by more than half. The smart approach is to place the coin in a protective holder and consider sending it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Certified coins earn more trust from collectors and regularly achieve higher prices at auction. The 2003 Roosevelt dime proves something fascinating. Even in a modern era of advanced minting technology, errors still slip through, and when they do, they can transform a 10-cent coin into a treasure worth thousands, or even tens of thousands. The most valuable errors from that year, especially wrong planchet strikes and dramatic double strikes, have sold between $42,520 and $114,750, demonstrating that even modern coins can become extraordinary collectibles. So the next time you pick up a 2003 dime, don't assume it's ordinary. Hold it to the light, examine the edges, check the color and the strike. You may be holding not just pocket change, but a rare piece of minting history. A tiny metal survivor of a momentary mistake, waiting for someone curious enough to discover its true value. The 2006 U.S. Roosevelt 1 dime is one of those coins people use every single day without paying the slightest attention to it. It's small, silver-colored, light, and familiar, so familiar, in fact, that it almost disappears in everyday life. It sits quietly in pockets, rides along in car cup holders, jingles inside cash registers, and gets tossed into jars of spare change. And yet, among the millions of dimes minted in 2006, a handful contain errors so dramatic, so rare, and so visually striking that they have sold for astonishing amounts. Somewhere between $40,200 and $108,650, depending on the error and the condition of the coin. To understand how a simple dime from 2006 can become worth thousands, imagine what was happening inside the U.S. Mint that year. Precision machinery ran at high speed. Blank planchets were fed into presses automatically. Dies struck thousands of coins per minute. Operators performed constant maintenance while watching for imperfections. But even with modern technology, errors still occur. A planchet can slip out of alignment. A die can fatigue and fracture. The feeder system can misfire. And in that tiny moment, only a fraction of a second, an error coin is born. Most are caught and destroyed, but a few escape into circulation. Unnoticed at the time point, one of the most visually dramatic errors from 2006 is the off-center strike. When the planchet is not perfectly aligned under the die, part of the design lands off to one side, leaving a blank crescent of untouched metal. Minor off-center strikes aren't particularly valuable, but once the misalignment reaches 50% or more, collectors take notice. A 2006 dime struck 55% off-center with a clear date, sold for $4,750, while another struck nearly 70% off-center, so extreme that Roosevelt's portrait was pushed almost completely off the coin, reached $7,900. These errors are instantly recognizable, even to someone who knows nothing about coin collecting. Another impressive error from 2006 is the double strike, which occurs when a coin is struck twice before being ejected from the press. If the second strike lands slightly rotated or offset, the results can be stunning. Roosevelt's portrait might appear twice, slightly overlapping. The date may be duplicated or distorted. The lettering can take on a ghost-like appearance. A 2006 dime with a dramatic second strike rotated about 30 degrees sold for $13,900, while another with two nearly complete impressions, almost as if two coins were struck on top of one another, sold for $19,650 at auction. These pieces capture a moment of mechanical malfunction frozen forever in metal. But the most valuable errors from 2006, the ones that push prices into the $40,200 to $108,650 range, are the wrong planchet strikes. These are among the rarest and most exciting errors any collector can hope to find. A wrong planchet strike happens when a dime design is mistakenly struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even for a foreign coin. When that happens, the resulting coin can have the wrong color, the wrong weight, the wrong size, and a design that doesn't fit the surface. One remarkable example is a 2006 dime struck on a copper-colored penny planchet. Because the penny blank is larger and made of copper, the resulting piece looks nothing like a dime. Roosevelt's portrait appears incomplete at the edges, and the entire coin has a bright reddish tone. That unusual coin sold for $40,200, shocking many collectors because of how recent it was. But the record holder for 2006 is even more extraordinary. A dime struck on a foreign planchet, slightly smaller and darker in tone, showed multiple gaps where the design failed to strike properly. The weight didn't match any U.S. denomination, and the edges were slightly irregular. Certified in superb mint state condition, that unique specimen sold for $108,650, becoming one of the most valuable modern Roosevelt dime errors ever discovered. Another type of error that appeared in 2006 is the missing clad layer error. Modern dimes are made with a copper core and an outer layer of cupronickel. When the outer layer fails to adhere properly, the coin can appear copper-colored on one side, or even on both sides in rare cases. A 2006 dime missing the clad layer on the obverse sold for $5,150, while another missing the layers on both sides, an error significantly rarer, reached $9,850 in auction. These coins are especially popular among collectors because their unusual color makes the error very easy to recognize. Other 2006 dimes display broad strike errors, caused when the collar that shapes the coin during striking fails to engage. Without the collar, the coin expands outward, becoming wider and losing its typical raised rim. A 2006 broad strike in mint state sold for $1,350, and another with a slight off-center component reached $2,350. These coins look visibly distorted, which makes them attractive for collectors who enjoy unusual shapes. There are also several examples of die-related errors from 2006, such as die cracks, die breaks, and cuds. When a die begins to fracture, raised lines, bumps, or blobs of extra metal can appear on the coin. A 2006 dime with a large cud near the rim sold for $1,300, while another with a long die crack running across the field reached $1,850. These pieces aren't as valuable as wrong planchet or double strike errors, but they are unique. No two die cracks are exactly the same. Another fascinating error that appeared in this year is the struck-through error, which occurs when something is trapped between the die and the planchet while the coin is being struck. Common objects include grease, metal shavings, cloth fibers, or even dust from the machinery. A 2006 dime struck through heavy grease, leaving Roosevelt's portrait partially erased, sold for $975, while a dime struck through a small piece of metal debris reached $1,700 due to its deep indentation. Partial collar strikes also occurred during 2006. These errors happen when part of the rim is properly formed and the other part collapses or misaligns. A high-grade 2006 partial collar strike sold for $1,050, showing that even subtle minting defects can attract competitive bids. What makes the 2006 dime especially exciting is how modern it is. This isn't a centuries-old coin or a rare relic from the early 20th century. It's a coin people still carry around today. That means one of these error dimes, possibly worth tens of thousands of dollars, could be sitting in someone's pocket, inside a register at a grocery store, dropped on the ground, or sitting forgotten in a coin jar at home. Some of these rare errors circulated for years before anyone noticed anything unusual. That if you ever come across a 2006 dime that doesn't look quite right, maybe the rim looks strange, the design seems off-center, the color is unusual, or the portrait appears doubled, it may be worth taking a closer look. Rare mint errors often hide in plain sight. But before anyone tries to clean a coin they believe is valuable, there's one rule that should never be broken. Never clean a rare coin. Cleaning destroys the original surfaces, erases important details, and can reduce the value of a coin by more than half. If someone thinks they found a rare error, the best approach is to store the coin safely and send it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. The 2006 Roosevelt dime reminds us that even in a modern era of highly automated minting, mistakes still happen. And when they do, they can transform a simple 10-cent coin into an extraordinary collectible. The most valuable examples from that year, strikes on wrong planchets, dramatic double strikes, and significant off-center strikes, have sold between $40,200 and $108,650, proving that great treasures can come in very small forms. So the next time you pick up a 2006 dime, pause for a moment. Tilt it in the light. Look closely at the edges, the portrait, the color, and the alignment of the design. Because in your hand, you might not be holding an ordinary dime. You might be holding a rare survivor of a minting accident, a small piece of history, and possibly a treasure worth far more than you ever imagined.